Hello, I'm Angelina Kelly, and today we are diving into the latest football news and transfer rumours. And joining me to get into it all is talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook. So, Crookie, Man United, as always, have been in the news. So let's kick off with Captain Bruno Fernandes. He's done an interview with Portuguese TV, and some quotes came out that I know we discussed on Inside Devils, that he said, "The club wanted me to go. I have that in my head. I told the directors this, but I think they didn't have the courage to make that decision." The second part was released last night, where he said, "I want to stay at Man United for as long as I feel desired. I would like to experience the Spanish league and fight for big titles in Italy. I have many connections to Italy. My daughter was born there. I've already thought about returning to Portugal. The first option would be Sporting." So a lot to unpack, but what is he thinking now by releasing this information? Because we know about the offer from Saudi in the summer, which he turned down. Will anyone else be back in for him either in January or the summer?
Well, first and foremost, I think we should point out this is not a new interview. This was an interview that I think Bruno Fernandes did during the October international break when he was away with Portugal. So as far back as that, obviously the quotes and the audio has only just been released the day after Fernandes scored a brilliant free kick in that 4-4 draw against Bournemouth at Old Trafford on Monday. I don't think anything he said in there is untrue. It was my understanding in the summer that although Ruben Amorim came out publicly and said he wanted to keep the captain, I think the hierarchy had a slightly different opinion, thinking that at 31 years of age, if they got a big money offer from Saudi Arabia, maybe the time would be right to cash in. And obviously that's been a bone of contention with Fernandes, who I think was a lot closer than many people realised to actually signing on the dotted line with Al Hilal. It was only when his wife decided that they'd be better set to stay in Manchester that move fell away. We know there's been interest from the likes of Bayern Munich and Inter Milan in the recent past as well. And speaking of people with connections inside the dressing room at Manchester United, I think a lot of the players, a lot of Bruno's own teammates suspect that maybe this is paving the way for a departure. Not in January, I don't think, because he's such a key component for Ruben Amorim, and you look at his numbers, they're very reliant on Bruno in terms of assists and obviously coming up with the big goals as well. But when we get to the summer, he'll be nearer 32. I think the same conversations will be had. And if he gets the opportunity to join Bayern Munich, I don't think too many Manchester United fans can begrudge him. He's certainly been the best signing since Sir Alex Ferguson left the football club. I don't think there's any debate about that. But he hasn't really got the silverware to back it up. Yes, he's won the occasional cup, but I think he would like to win a league title. He would like to have a genuine shot at winning the Champions League. And obviously he would get those things at Bayern and probably not at Manchester United in the immediate future.
Do you think he's done that on purpose by mentioning the Spanish league and Italy and Portugal, or am I reading too much into that?
Listen, it could be seen as a come and get me plea. He's quite specific, isn't he? Certainly when it comes to a return to Sporting. Again, I'm not surprised by that. I think that probably that was always part of his long-term planning. But it does just put these clubs on alert and just brings a little bit of uncertainty at a time when things are going okay for United. 1 defeat in 10. Yes, they've dropped some points along the way that they will be frustrated about, but they're there or thereabouts in terms of Champions League qualification. But it's never a quiet news day, is it, at Old Trafford?
Never, ever. And another situation that I know you and I have had our say on Inside Devils, Kobbie Mainoo and his brother. They've hit the headlines. The free Kobbie Mainoo shirt that Jordan, his brother, wore at Old Trafford after the 4-4 draw with Bournemouth. Ruben Amorim doesn't seem to fancy Kobbie Mainoo. We know this. That's not old news. The player needs game time. I just wanted to get your thoughts on what you think could happen here post the T-shirt. You know, will that publicity stunt his brother pulled change anyone in the United hierarchy's thinking, maybe negatively?
Potentially. I mean, I did give Manchester United the chance to respond to it yesterday. They said that wasn't a matter they're really going to get involved in publicly, but I'm sure Ruben Amorim will have addressed it behind the scenes, and he's due to speak to the media on Thursday or Friday ahead of the game against Villa this weekend. And obviously it's going to be a hot topic. It will be one of the first questions, I'm sure, that he has asked. But my last understanding of the situation was that while reluctantly, I think the United hierarchy are willing to let Kobbie go out on loan in the January transfer window, they don't want to sell him permanently. I don't think this publicity stunt will change that. But it was interesting because we wondered how much Kobbie knew about it, or whether it was just his half-brother going rogue. But then our own Andy Goldstein wore a free Kobbie Mainoo T-shirt for his drive time show on Tuesday, and Kobbie Mainoo actually, or his account on social media, liked the picture that Andy Goldstein put up. He's clearly unhappy. He wants out. He wanted out in the summer. He's not getting the game time. I think his England World Cup place has probably fallen by the wayside already. So I don't think this is going to be the end of the story.
Yeah, I agree. When I heard that news about his account liking it, because you never know, people might be running his account, but even still, it's just not a good look. And I guess I was kind of hoping that he wasn't aware of the T-shirt, but maybe he was. And I just think, like, if we not learn anything from, I get people's families care, but I don't think much good comes of it. And yeah, maybe, Alejandro Garnacho's brother getting involved, he might have got his move to Chelsea, but I just think the repercussions of it, I just really don't like it. But speaking of Chelsea, obviously, Alejandro Garnacho scoring goals, but, Enzo Maresca has been saying some strange things. After the win over Everton on Saturday, he said the previous 48 hours had been the worst since he'd been at the club, didn't feel supported. Maybe he's implying by his bosses upstairs at Chelsea, but has since insisted he's happy. What's up with him here, and what does the future hold?
Well, I know the Chelsea hierarchy have been taken a bit by surprise at these comments, because they don't think anything happened in those previous 48 hours in the wake of the Champions League defeat to Atalanta that was out of the ordinary. And I think there was an expectation, actually, that maybe in his pre-Cardiff City press conference this week, Maresca might climb down and backtrack and say he was just speaking emotionally in the heat of an important win against Everton. He didn't do that, so the story is still there rumbling in the background. I think it's pretty clear he wasn't having a pot shot at the media. He wasn't having a go at the fans. He was going to war with the Chelsea hierarchy. He clearly doesn't agree with the model, the way the club is run, where so much faith is put in young players, and I think he feels that prohibits Chelsea from challenging for the biggest prizes. And I think the rotation that he's been hammered for as well is probably down to the fact the board have got so many players, so many young players, that they want to get minutes in the first team in order to increase their transfer value, and maybe he's pushing back against that as well. I don't think this ends well for Enzo Maresca, because the Chelsea hierarchy don't like criticism. They want their managers to be on board with the way they run the football club. As soon as Mauricio Pochettino pushed back against it, he was very quickly shown the door, and there is a plan to review Maresca's position at the end of the season. I think every defeat now that Chelsea suffer is just going to pile more pressure on him, so I'm not really sure why he's decided to go down this particular route.
Yeah, it is very, very strange, isn't it? And it will be interesting to see, if he remains Chelsea manager after that review. Now, one manager who, you've mentioned in your notebook, Oliver Glasner, Crystal Palace manager. You've reported that the bosses are bracing themselves for Glasner to leave when his contract expires at the end of the season. Do you feel like he's more likely to be out the door than in? And can you tell us about any possible replacements they might be lining up?
Yeah, I think I wrote a while ago that Crystal Palace were concerned that Oliver Glasner wouldn't stay beyond the end of the season. I think the nearer we get to that, and no sign of him agreeing to a new contract, the more likely it is that he departs. He's been quite vocal, hasn't he, about the fact that maybe they've not done enough to support him in the transfer market. Now, that could be with an eye on January, but again, I'm not expecting Palace to be one of the biggest spenders. I think they've probably overachieved with the resources they've got to win the FA Cup last season, should qualify automatically for the round of 16 of the Conference League, and they're in and around the Champions League places as well. But if Glasner isn't backed, then I think the likelihood is that he looks for a bigger job in the summer, maybe even at Chelsea. I know he's one that they certainly have been keeping an eye on, and we know that Crystal Palace now are shopping around looking for potential replacements in case the worst happens. One of those is the Getafe boss, Jose Bordalas, who himself is due to become a free agent at the end of the season. There's another manager over in Spain, Rayo Vallecano's Inigo Perez, who Palace are also keeping tabs on. And Liam Rossini, I wrote about him in the notebook last week, that a number of Premier League clubs are impressed with what he's done at Strasbourg. So, yeah, I think there's every chance at the moment that he goes, and that they are looking for a new manager. But it does seem that maybe one of those foreign appointments is more likely at this moment in time.
Finally, I just wanted to end on Arsenal, because they aren't expected to do loads of business this January after a very big summer, but they've picked up a lot of injuries this season. They're going to want to try their best to avoid being the bottle jobs that everyone call them. They've recently been linked with an 18-year-old Lille midfielder, Ayoub Bouadi. Could you see them going in for him next month, or even just, bolstering their squad because of those injuries?
I'm not expecting Arsenal to do much in January, to be honest. They had a big summer. I think I'm right in saying they were the biggest net spenders in the Premier League. They've got players coming back to fitness, the likes of Kai Havertz and some of the other absentees should be back very shortly. So, yeah, I think maybe you might see sort of pre-contract agreements for some of their summer targets, but I'm not expecting Arsenal to make a big splash in this transfer window. I don't think they need to be honest. The squad has been stretched by the injuries, but they've come through that pretty much unscathed.
But you're not sure if they're winning the league still.
City are on their heels, aren't they? They are in the rearview mirror, and Arsenal have made a habit of choking at the business end of seasons.
The two painful situations for us as Man United fans, if either of those are lifting the Premier League title. But there you have it. Crookie, thank you so much for joining me. Let us know in the comments what you think about that latest news, and don't forget this video is in association with our own bookie, talkSPORT Bet. Download the app or head to talksportbet.com if you want to get involved. 18+, T's and C's apply. BeGambleAware.org.